Hello and welcome to the Jones Zone. Today we are going to be talking about a little film known as The Dark Knight. Now, The Dark Knight uh, is my favourite film of all time, and I want to tell you why it's a masterpiece. Now, the film holds a 94% critic and audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Came out in 2008. It was made on a budget of $185 million and it grossed over $1.4 billion. And I think it stands the test of time. And I think it's all down to the fact that Christopher Nolan is one of our generation's greatest directors, rather. He's also coincidentally my favourite director. And I think it's his commitment to trying to remain as practical as you can. So try and do everything for real that really makes his films hold up. Especially films like The Dark Knight, because you've got this amazing truck flip that they did for real. So every time you watch it, that looks real because it is. And that's like the big argument between practical effects and CGI. Now, I have to admit, I am pretty obsessed when it comes to The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Trilogy. I have it on DVD. This is a 2-disc special edition with a slip case and a comic of the opening scene. I also have this Batman Begins Dark Knight Blu-ray DVD steel case. I also have The Dark Knight as a steelbook. I also have The Dark Knight as a regular Blu-ray. And then I also have The Dark Knight Trilogy Ultimate Collector's Edition box, which when you open it up you get things like there's a certificate, I think, of authenticity. You get Hot Wheels of the 3 vehicles. There's a digital download code, and then you pull this up and there's like a book along with a book like that's got the discs in. Very fancy. And I pretty much own each film I'd say about 4 or 5 times. And they're not different versions of the films, they're just different versions of Blu-rays and DVDs. That's, my history with The Dark Knight. But it was also the first film I saw in cinema that I think really had a great impact on me. It was especially the first film I'd seen where it transcends being just a comic book movie. It is a comic book movie, but it is so much more than that. It's its own entity. It's a version of Batman that we as an audience had never seen before. And I mean, yes, we did get a glimpse into that world with Batman Begins, but I think the big contrasting difference between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight is, to me, the Batman Begins still feels slightly on the comic book side in its like Gotham City skyline. But then we get to The Dark Knight and it just looks so real. It looks like a real place filled with real people. It looks like all these things could just happen. You could have the Joker, you could have a Batman. It just felt so grounded. And it's something I've always appreciated. And I mean, the big obvious argument you can make for The Dark Knight being one of the best movies ever made is Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. I don't think it gets much better than Heath Ledger's Joker. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix is incredible, but you can't compare the two. What Heath Ledger does in The Dark Knight is very different to what Joaquin Phoenix does in Joker. The Dark Knight just has everything going for it. It's got a solid cast, a solid script, solid score, solid visuals, there aren't even, I mean, there is green screening and CGI in The Dark Knight, but because Christopher Nolan's so insistent on trying to do as much as you can for real, that really shows when you watch a film like The Dark Knight. And also Christopher Nolan's commitment to using the best cameras available to get the best in cinema experience. I've seen The Dark Knight about 3 times on an IMAX screen, on like a big IMAX screen, and honestly, you will never experience a film as immersive as The Dark Knight on IMAX. It is insane. I am aware I'm biased because it's my favourite film of all time, but it's a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece. If you've never seen The Dark Knight, I highly recommend you watch it while we're all in lockdown. The other great thing about The Dark Knight as well is it feels really standalone within its own trilogy. So you don't need to watch Batman Begins and you don't need to watch The Dark Knight Rises to watch The Dark Knight. But I always argue, if you watch Batman Begins, you have to watch The Dark Knight. And if you're going to watch Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, you might as well watch The Dark Knight Rises as well. But The Dark Knight is a masterpiece. And I welcome any discussion against or for or against it being a masterpiece, but it is a masterpiece. And I think it's the best film Christopher Nolan has ever done, and it's also one of the best films ever made, and I think it's the best comic book movie ever made. And that's a bold statement because of Avengers Endgame, but in terms of like a cinematic masterpiece, and it's a critical masterpiece as well. Like you can, I think you can watch something like an Avengers Endgame and probably find things that you don't think are as good as they could be, but like I genuinely don't think you can do that with Dark Knight. There is not a single second in The Dark Knight that shouldn't be there, and there is not in my eyes, there is not a single flaw in The Dark Knight. So that is why I think The Dark Knight is a masterpiece. I haven't really touched upon Hans Zimmer's music, but if I do that, we'll be here for hours. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.